I thought it was just another cleaning job, until my boss offered me £5,000 to keep a secret. I had no idea what I was getting into. Emma Jones was 27 years old. She worked as a cleaner in a private mansion on the outskirts of London. Her pay was small, but it helped her manage rent and food. The mansion belonged to a quiet man named Mr. Richard Cole. He was in his 40s, owned several businesses, and was known to keep to himself. Emma had been cleaning his home for 6 months and had never spoken to him beyond polite greetings. One Friday evening, Mr. Cole asked Emma to stay back after work. She was surprised because he had never done that before. She thought maybe he needed help with an extra task. When she finished cleaning the living room, he told her to sit down. His voice was calm but serious. He said he had a small request and he would pay her well for it. Emma listened carefully. Mr. Cole said he wanted her to keep a secret. He did not explain what the secret was yet. He said he would give her £5,000 in cash if she agreed never to tell anyone what she was about to see in his house. Emma was confused and a bit nervous. She had never held that kind of money in her life. She asked what kind of secret it was. He smiled slightly and said, "You'll find out soon." Her heart beat faster. The thought of £5,000 felt life-changing. Her rent was overdue, and her mother needed money for medicine. Still, she was unsure. She asked if it was something illegal. He said no, but she must not tell anyone, even the police, no matter what she saw. Emma hesitated. The offer sounded wrong, but the money pulled her in. After a few minutes of silence, she agreed. Mr. Cole nodded, stood up, and walked to a door behind his bookshelf. She had never noticed that door before. He said, "Follow me." Emma followed quietly. The corridor behind the door was dimly lit and cold. They walked down to a small basement room. The smell of cleaning chemicals and metal filled the air. Emma felt uneasy but said nothing. Mr. Cole stopped in front of a locked cabinet. He opened it with a small key and showed her a black box. Inside were several old files and a small glass jar. The jar contained a dark liquid with something floating in it. Emma asked what it was. He said it was a family secret. He closed the box and told her to forget what she saw. He handed her an envelope filled with cash and said she could leave. Emma left the house that night with the money in her hand. On the train home, she kept thinking about the jar. She wondered why he called it a family secret. She promised herself to stay quiet, but something inside her said she had just entered a problem she didn't understand. Emma could not sleep that night. She placed the envelope of cash on her small table and kept staring at it. It was the most money she had ever seen. She counted it again and again just to make sure it was real. It was exactly £5,000. She thought about all the things she could do with it. Pay her rent, buy food, help her mother, and still have enough left. But each time she looked at the money, she remembered the jar. The image of the dark liquid with something floating inside stayed in her mind. She kept asking herself what it was. It did not look like anything she had seen before. It looked old, maybe kept for many years. She wondered if it was part of his business or something personal. She tried to sleep, but her thoughts were restless. Around 1 a.m. her phone rang. Emma picked it up quickly. There was no number showing. She said hello 3 times, but no one answered. The line stayed silent for 10 seconds, then she heard a soft humming sound. It was a man's voice, low and slow. It sounded like the same kind of humming Mr. Cole made earlier that evening when he was unlocking the cabinet. Then the line went dead. Emma dropped the phone. Her body felt cold. She checked her window and doors to make sure they were locked. She sat on her bed and told herself it was just a prank call. But after a few minutes, the phone rang again. This time, she did not answer. The call stopped after 2 rings. When she finally stood up to get some water, her phone buzzed again. A text message came in. It said, "Remember your promise." Emma froze. She looked around her small flat, trying to see if someone was outside. She quickly turned off the lights and sat down in the dark. Her hands were shaking. She deleted the message, switched off her phone, and went back to bed. But she could not sleep for the rest of the night. Every sound made her jump. By morning, she decided to go to work as if nothing happened. She reached the mansion at 8 a.m. The gate was half open, which was strange because it was always locked. The gardener was not around and the driveway looked empty. She rang the bell. No one answered. After waiting a few minutes, she pushed the gate open and walked to the front door. The door was slightly open. Emma called out, "Mr. Cole?" No response. She stepped inside slowly. The house was quiet, too quiet. She went straight to the living room. The lights were still on from the night before and one of the chairs was turned over. On the floor she saw the same black box lying open. The jar inside was gone. Emma felt her chest tighten. She called his name again, louder this time, but still no answer. She walked towards the hidden door behind the bookshelf. It was wide open now. A faint smell of chemicals came from the basement. She took a deep breath and started walking down the stairs. Emma held the handrail as she walked down the basement stairs. The air was cold and thick. The lights were dim and the smell of chemicals was stronger than before. When she reached the bottom, she saw that the cabinet Mr. Cole had opened the night before was empty. The files were scattered on the floor and the black box was still open. But the glass jar was missing. She looked around carefully. The small basement had a table, a chair, and a single light bulb hanging from the ceiling. There was also a cupboard in the corner. Emma noticed the cupboard door was shaking slightly. She froze for a moment. Then she slowly walked closer and opened it. Inside she found another door, smaller, made of metal and partly hidden by a piece of cloth. It looked like a cold storage unit. She pulled the handle gently. The door opened with a soft click. The cold air that came out made her shiver. Inside the storage there were several glass jars, all lined up on metal shelves. Each jar had a small label with a person's name written in neat handwriting. Emma stepped back in shock. She recognized some of the names. They were the names of people who used to work in the mansion before her. Her breathing became fast. She picked one jar and looked closely. It had a small object floating in dark liquid, just like the one she saw last night. It looked like a piece of skin or hair. She quickly placed the jar back and covered her mouth. Her eyes filled with tears. She whispered to herself, "What is this?" As she turned to leave, she saw a small piece of paper lying under the table. It had Mr. Cole's handwriting. The note said, "Do not open them until I return. They are part of the family." Emma did not understand what it meant. She took the paper and put it in her pocket. She ran up the stairs and into the living room. Once upstairs, she called out again for Mr. Cole, but there was still no answer. She decided to call the police. When she took her phone out of her bag, she noticed she had 2 missed calls from an unknown number. Her fingers trembled as she dialed 999. The operator answered, but before Emma could speak, she heard a sound coming from upstairs. It was a door closing softly. She hung up the call and looked towards the staircase. "Mr. Cole?" she said quietly. No reply. She slowly climbed the stairs, one step at a time. When she reached the top, she saw that the door to his bedroom was slightly open. She pushed it gently. The room was empty, but the window was wide open. A cold breeze blew the curtains sideways. On the bed lay a small envelope. Emma walked closer and picked it up. Inside was a single photo. It was of her. She was standing at the mansion's gate, taken that morning. Written on the back of the photo were 4 words, "You are part now." Emma dropped the photo immediately and ran out of the room. Her heart was pounding. She did not know if she was being watched, but she knew one thing: she had to leave that house before sunset. Emma ran out of the mansion and into the front driveway. She paused for a moment to catch her breath. The wind blew her hair across her face, but she did not stop. She wanted to get as far away from the house as possible. Her hands were shaking, and the envelope with the photo was still clutched tightly in her hand. She did not look back. Within 10 minutes, she saw police cars and an ambulance approaching the mansion. The flashing lights reflected off the wet pavement. Emma hid behind a tree, trying not to be noticed. She watched as the officers and paramedics entered the mansion quickly. One officer came out with a notebook, writing something down. Another checked the rooms. Emma could hear the murmuring of voices, but she could not understand what they were saying. She noticed the gardener arriving. He looked worried and confused. Emma wondered if he knew something about the secret room or the jars. The police spoke to him for a few minutes, then he went inside the house. Emma stayed hidden. She was scared, but she also wanted to know what happened. After a while, an officer came out and spoke to a man in a suit. Emma could not see the man's face clearly, but she assumed he was part of Mr. Cole's family or business team. Emma tried to calm herself. She knew she could not stay near the mansion much longer. She did not want the police to question her or find her in the area. She decided to walk away quietly. But just as she turned the corner, a police officer stepped in front of her. He looked at her carefully. "Miss, can I ask you a few questions?" he said. Emma nodded slowly. She felt her mouth go dry. The officer asked her if she worked in the mansion. She said yes. He asked if she had seen Mr. Cole that morning. She told him she had not seen him and explained that the house had been quiet when she arrived. He asked if she knew anything about the hidden rooms or cabinets. Emma hesitated. She thought about the jars, the photo, and the envelope. She decided to tell the officer only what she had seen in the living room and the black box. She did not mention the basement or the jars. She told him about the envelope of cash but not the amount. The officer nodded and wrote everything down. He said, "Thank you, Mississippi. Please stay available if we need more information." Emma nodded again. She was relieved when he finally walked away. After the police left, Emma walked fast through the streets of London. She did not look back once. Her mind kept replaying the images of the jars and the envelope. She wondered what Mr. Cole had meant by, "You are part now." She knew her life had changed completely. She also knew that she could not trust anyone with this secret. By the time Emma reached her small flat, her hands were shaking again. She locked the door behind her and placed the envelope on the kitchen table. She stared at it for a long time. She knew she had to make a choice, keep the money and risk the secret or throw it away and stay safe. Emma had no answer yet, but she felt that her life would never be the same. Emma could not stop thinking about the envelope on her kitchen table. She had not opened it since finding it in Mr. Cole's bedroom. Her hands shook as she picked it up again. She looked at it closely. It was small, brown, and sealed tightly with no name on it. She wondered if it was another message from him or someone connected to him. She sat down and slowly opened the envelope. Inside there was a small folded piece of paper and a photograph. The photograph showed her standing at the mansion's gate that morning, just as she had seen before. She flipped it over. Written in neat handwriting were the words, "The choice is yours. Keep it or lose it." Emma froze. She stared at the note, trying to understand what it meant. She felt fear and confusion at the same time. Was the money a trap? Was she in danger? She remembered the jars in the basement, the missing people, and the warning she had received over the phone. She felt a chill run through her body. She decided to put the envelope down and think. She paced her small flat. She thought about her family, her mother's illness, and the bills she had to pay. £5,000 could solve many problems. But she also remembered the warning, "Do not tell anyone." The thought of keeping such a dangerous secret weighed heavily on her. Hours passed and Emma could not decide what to do. She thought about contacting the police again, but she feared they might not believe her or understand the danger. She considered throwing the envelope away, but a part of her wanted to keep it, just in case it offered some protection or explanation. As evening approached, Emma heard a faint knock on her front door. She froze and held her breath. She slowly walked to the door and looked through the peephole. No one was there. She opened the door carefully. The street outside was empty, quiet. She stepped out onto the doorstep, looked around, and saw a small parcel lying on the mat. Emma picked up the parcel. It was light, about the size of a notebook. There was no name or address on it. She carried it inside and placed it next to the envelope. She opened the parcel slowly. Inside was a small key and another note. The note read, "The next step is below. Use the key only when ready." Emma's heart raced. She looked at the key and then at the envelope again. She did not understand what "below" meant. Was it the basement of the mansion? Was it somewhere else? She felt fear but also curiosity. She knew the key could lead to answers, but it could also put her in danger. After some time, Emma sat at the table, staring at the key, the envelope, and the photograph. She realized she had to make a decision. She could ignore the key and the secret, or she could face whatever was waiting for her. She felt that whatever choice she made, her life would never be the same. By the time night fell, Emma decided to wait. She would not rush into anything. She placed the key carefully inside a drawer and locked it. She put the envelope and photograph on top of it. She hoped that waiting would give her clarity. But she also felt deep inside that the secret was not finished with her yet. The next morning, Emma woke up early. She could not stop thinking about the key and the note from the parcel. Her mind kept returning to the basement of Mr. Cole's mansion. She wondered if the next step mentioned in the note referred to that place. She felt nervous but knew she needed answers. She decided she would go back to the mansion. Emma dressed quickly in simple clothes and left her flat. The streets of London were quiet in the early morning. She walked briskly toward the mansion, keeping her eyes on the path ahead. She felt her heart beating faster with every step. She tried to think clearly. She reminded herself that she was careful, and she would not touch anything until she understood the situation. When she arrived at the mansion, the gate was still slightly open from the police visit 2 days before. She pushed it gently and walked up the driveway. Everything looked the same, but there was an unusual stillness in the air. She entered the house quietly. The living room was clean, as if no one had been there. She went straight to the hidden door behind the bookshelf. She opened the door slowly, holding the key from the parcel. The metal door at the end of the basement corridor was slightly ajar. Emma's hands were shaking, but she took a deep breath and inserted the key. The lock clicked. She pushed the door open and stepped inside. The cold air hit her face and she shivered. The room looked exactly like before, with the metal shelves full of jars. Emma's eyes went to the shelf where she had seen the missing jar. It was empty. But in the middle of the room she noticed a new box she had not seen before. It was small, wooden, and locked. She walked closer and placed her hands on it. The box was heavy. She remembered the note, "Use the key only when ready." She realized this box was what the note had meant. She slowly opened the box. Inside were several photographs, letters, and one small envelope. The photographs showed people she did not recognize except one. A picture of Mr. Cole as a young man, standing with several other men. The letters were old, written in neat handwriting. The envelope had a seal. Emma opened it carefully. Inside was another note, "The truth is deeper than you think." Emma felt her stomach tighten. She went through the photographs and letters slowly. They spoke about business deals, personal secrets, and hidden parts of Mr. Cole's life. It became clear that he had kept many things private, things that could harm others if revealed. Emma realized that the £5,000 she had received was not just money, it was a test. A test to see if she could handle the secret. She sat on the floor and tried to understand everything. The jars, the photographs, the letters, and the envelope all pointed to one thing. Mr. Cole's life was full of hidden dangers. Emma knew that she could not share this with anyone. She also knew that if she ignored the secret, she might face consequences. She felt trapped between fear and responsibility. After some time, Emma stood up. She locked the metal door, returned the key to her pocket, and walked back upstairs. She decided she would take the time to think before acting. She understood now that the secret was bigger than just the jars or the envelope. It was about life, power, and choices. She left the mansion, feeling a mix of fear and determination. Emma returned to her flat, carrying the key and the envelope with her. She locked the door behind her and placed the items carefully on the kitchen table. She sat down, trying to calm her thoughts. The morning sunlight streamed through the window, but it did little to ease the fear she felt. She knew that the secret she had uncovered was dangerous, and she could not ignore it. While Emma was thinking, her phone rang. She looked at the screen and saw an unknown number. She hesitated but answered it. A calm, cold voice spoke on the other side. "I know what you have, Emma. Keep quiet or you will regret it." Emma froze. The voice was deep and unfamiliar, but she recognized the warning tone. Her hands shook as she gripped the phone. She asked, "Who is this?" There was silence for a moment. Then the line went dead. Emma felt panic rise inside her. She knew this was the first real threat since discovering the secret. She thought about the envelope, the key, and everything she had seen in the mansion. Whoever called her knew she had taken the items. She realized that keeping the secret would not be easy. Someone was watching her. She decided to contact her best friend, Daniel. He had always been reliable and practical. She dialed his number and explained briefly that she was in trouble. Daniel listened and told her to stay calm and lock all doors and windows. He said he would come over immediately. Emma felt slightly relieved knowing she would not face the threat alone. While waiting for Daniel, Emma checked all the locks in her flat. She drew the curtains and turned off the lights in the living room. She sat near the door, holding the envelope tightly. Every sound outside made her jump. She kept imagining someone trying to break in. Her mind raced with questions. Who called her? What would happen if she kept the secret? Could Mr. Cole's family be involved? After about 30 minutes, there was a knock at the door. Emma froze. She whispered, "Daniel?" The voice on the other side said, "It's me. Let me in." She unlocked the door quickly and Daniel stepped inside. He looked serious and concerned. Emma handed him the envelope and explained everything she had discovered in the mansion. Daniel listened carefully and nodded. He suggested they go to the police immediately, but Emma hesitated. She explained that the police had already been involved, and she did not trust them to understand the situation fully. Daniel agreed but insisted they find a safe way to protect themselves. As the evening grew darker, Emma and Daniel sat together, discussing their next steps. Emma realized that the threat was real and immediate. She had underestimated the danger at first, thinking it was only about money. Now she understood it was much bigger. She knew that keeping the secret would require careful planning and courage. By the time night fell, Emma made a decision. She would not give up the secret. She would find a way to protect herself and Daniel. She understood that the first threat was only the beginning and that more challenges were coming. The secret had chosen her and she had to face it no matter what. The next morning, Emma tried to focus on her work, but her mind kept returning to the secret. She did not sleep well. The warning call from the previous night stayed in her thoughts. Every time she heard a sound outside, her heart jumped. She had locked all doors and windows, but she knew that was not enough. She needed to stay alert. Around mid-morning, there was a quiet knock at her door. Emma froze and listened carefully. She whispered, "Who is it?" A man's voice answered softly, "Emma, it's important. I need to speak with you." She did not recognize the voice. Her hands shook as she moved closer to the door. She looked through the peephole. A man in a gray coat was standing outside. He looked ordinary, but something about him made her uneasy. Emma stepped back. She did not open the door. "How do I know I can trust you?" she called out. The man said, "I'm not your enemy. I know about Mr. Cole and the items you have. I can help you." Emma's mind raced. Could she trust the stranger? Or was he part of the danger she was trying to avoid? After a long pause, Emma decided to open the door just a little. She kept one hand on the door frame. The man handed her a small envelope. "This is for you. Read it carefully. It will tell you what to do next." He looked serious and then walked away quickly. Emma closed the door and sat down, her hands trembling. She held the envelope tightly. She opened it slowly. Inside there was a short note. It said, "Do not go back to the mansion alone. Meet me tonight at the park near Baker Street. Bring only what you have. No one else must know." There were no names, no signatures. Emma felt a mix of fear and curiosity. She did not know if this was a trap or a real chance to get help. Daniel arrived later in the afternoon. Emma told him about the visitor and the note. Daniel looked worried. "We cannot ignore this. But it could be dangerous. Someone knows you have the secret and they are watching." Emma nodded. She understood that the stranger might be her only way to understand what was happening. As evening approached, Emma and Daniel prepared to leave. They decided to go together to the park, taking only the envelope, the key, and the photograph. Emma's heart raced as they walked through the streets. She felt exposed, knowing someone might be following them. Every step seemed louder than usual, and every shadow felt threatening. When they reached the park, it was quiet. The stranger was waiting near a bench. He wore a hood and kept his head down. Emma and Daniel approached carefully. The man looked up and said calmly, "You are ready to know the truth. But it will not be easy." Emma felt her stomach tighten. She realized that the secret was far bigger than she had imagined. They sat on the bench. The stranger began speaking slowly, explaining that Mr. Cole had hidden items and information that were connected to powerful people. The money, the jars, the photographs, they were all part of a system that could be dangerous if exposed. Emma listened carefully, feeling both fear and determination. She knew her life had changed completely and she could not turn back now. The stranger at the park leaned forward slightly and spoke quietly. "Emma, what you hold is not just money or photographs. It is a secret that could put your life in danger. Mr. Cole kept these items to protect himself and others connected to him. Some people would do anything to get them back." Emma listened carefully, feeling fear mixed with curiosity. She knew he was telling the truth because of the urgency in his voice. He continued, "The jars, the letters, and the photographs are part of a larger system. It is not magic or superstition. It is evidence. Evidence of deals, betrayals, and secrets that some very powerful people do not want revealed. You were chosen by chance when you found the black box and the envelope. That is why you received the £5,000. Emma's mind raced. She remembered the warning call and the photograph in the envelope. She understood now that the money was not just a gift. It was a test. The stranger looked at her and said, "The money is not for you to spend. It is a warning and a responsibility. If you use it carelessly, it will bring attention to you. Do you understand?" Emma nodded slowly. She understood perfectly. He reached into his coat pocket and handed her a small USB drive. "This contains more information. It will explain everything about the people in the photographs, the names on the jars, and the letters. You must keep it safe and never show it to anyone except me. Once others know you have it, your life could be at risk." Emma took the USB carefully, feeling its weight. She realized it was more important than any amount of money. Daniel looked at her and asked, "Can we trust him?" The stranger spoke without hesitation. "Yes, but only for now. Time is limited. There are people watching. Some may try to follow you tonight or find the mansion. You must move carefully. Do not tell anyone about this meeting. Do not make mistakes." Emma nodded again. She felt the pressure of the situation. She knew one wrong step could ruin everything. The stranger gave them a location. "Tomorrow you will receive more instructions. Go home now. Do not stop. Keep the key, the envelope, and the USB safe at all times. Your decisions from this point on will determine your safety." Emma and Daniel left the park quickly, glancing behind them. The stranger stayed in place, watching until they disappeared into the night. When Emma returned to her flat, she locked all doors and windows. She placed the envelope, the photograph, the key, and the USB drive in a small safe she had hidden under her bed. She sat on the floor, exhausted. She realized that she was now part of something much bigger than herself. This was no longer just about £5,000 or a hidden jar. She thought about Mr. Cole and the people whose names she had seen in the basement. She wondered if they were alive or had disappeared like the jars suggested. She felt a mix of fear, responsibility, and determination. Emma knew she could not run away. She had to understand the secret and protect herself. She had to be careful or the people watching her would find her next. That night, Emma could not sleep. She kept thinking about the stranger, the USB drive, and the instructions. She realized the real challenge was only beginning. Whatever she chose to do, she could not make mistakes. The hidden truth was waiting, and it demanded action. The next morning, Emma woke early. She felt exhausted but alert. She knew today would be decisive. She checked the safe under her bed, confirming that the envelope, photograph, key, and USB drive were all still there. She took a deep breath and tried to calm her thoughts. Today she would decide what to do with the secret. Daniel arrived at her flat shortly after. He looked serious. "Are you ready?" he asked. Emma nodded. She knew she could not face this alone, but she also knew she had to lead. They packed a small bag with only the essentials: the key, the envelope, the USB drive, and the photograph. Emma felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. They walked quickly through the streets of London, following the instructions the stranger had given. Emma kept glancing behind them. Every shadow and every passerby seemed suspicious. She felt nervous, but she also felt a sense of determination. She knew this was the moment to take control of her life. They reached an abandoned warehouse. The stranger was waiting inside, standing near a table with a lamp. He looked at Emma and Daniel and nodded. "You are here. That means you are ready," he said. He gestured for them to sit. Emma placed the items on the table carefully. The stranger opened the USB drive and began showing them files, photos, and videos. Each one explained more about Mr. Cole, the missing people, and the system of secrets he had kept. Emma realized the truth. Mr. Cole had been protecting himself and others while keeping dangerous people away. The £5,000, the jars, and the envelopes were tests to see if she could handle the responsibility. She understood now that the secret was bigger than money or fear. It was about life, choices, and survival. The stranger asked her, "Will you take the responsibility or will you walk away?" Emma thought for a long moment. She remembered her mother, her life, and the warnings. She knew walking away might be safer, but it would also mean abandoning the truth. She looked at Daniel. He nodded, silently telling her he would support her. Emma took a deep breath. "I will take it," she said firmly. The stranger nodded and handed her a new envelope. "From this moment, your decisions will guide your safety and the safety of others. Be careful. Trust no one outside this circle." Emma accepted it. She felt the weight of responsibility but also a strange sense of control. As she left the warehouse with Daniel, Emma felt the world around her had changed. She was no longer just a cleaner or an ordinary person. She was now part of a dangerous secret, but she was ready to face it. The challenge was not over, but she knew she had made the right choice. That night, back in her flat, Emma placed the envelope, photograph, key, and USB drive in a new hidden location. She sat down, thinking about the journey that had brought her here. She realized that life would never be ordinary again. The secret was hers to protect, and she would face whatever came next with courage and careful planning. Emma looked at the city lights outside her window. She knew danger could appear at any moment, but she also knew she had made the choice that mattered most: to face the truth no matter the cost.